Joining us at this point is a special guest. We have with us Major Libby Weiss, spokeswoman of the IDF, live with us. Libby, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being with us. Let me begin by asking you, Major Weiss, about the development that has, of course, been welcomed across the world. The fact that 2 hostages have been released. What do you believe led to this development, and how is the IDF and Israel viewing this?
Well, of course, we're happy to see that 2 innocent civilians that were taken brutally by Hamas are now free. But I would also emphasize that we have more than 200 other civilians who are being held right now. And of course, I would look with skepticism at any explanation that Hamas provides that attempts to explain this as some sort of humanitarian move. Clearly, the humanitarian thing to do is not to take civilians hostage in the first place. So, of course, we're very happy to see at least 2 who have been released, but we should not forget the more than 200 others who are currently being held.
Yes, Major Weiss, now what we do believe is that Hamas has said that they have released these 2 individuals because of humanitarian reasons. It's obviously unclear what led to this. Now, reportedly, both are of American origin, so both were American nationals who have been released. Do you believe this is also a planned strategy to release 2 Americans, Major Weiss?
I don't know to comment on what the thinking is on the part of Hamas. But again, I would have to reemphasize that the humanitarian thing to do would be, A, not to take civilians hostage. And 2, we know that there are still children who are being held hostage. We know that there are elderly people being held hostage. So again, I in no way can somehow accept that this is anything that is being done for humanitarian purposes. The humanitarian thing to do would be to release everyone immediately.
Yes. Now, that is the big question, that will we see now the release of more hostages? Will this set the precedent for more hostages being released? Because obviously that is what the world is calling for. They're calling for the immediate release of all hostages. Do you believe this could lead to that happening in the next few days? Is the pressure from Israel and the world working?
I don't know to say. I think that there's no question that the fastest way for all of these people to be returned home would be for them to be released immediately. That is something that we have been saying since October 7th. And holding them the way that they're being held right now in the Gaza Strip after having been dragged across the border is horrific. It's a clear violation of any kind of international law, and they absolutely should be released immediately. And that's the fastest way to ensure that they get home safely. Major
Libby, how many hostages are anticipated to be there in Hamas's custody right now? What's the figure that the IDF is working on right now?
At this stage, we believe it's approximately 210 who are being held hostage. And of course, as we have additional information, I'm happy to share that as we have it.
Were they where were they released? Was it at the Egyptian crossing, or was it at another point? Where were they actually released from the Hamas custody?
I'm not entirely sure about the specifics of it. Of course, I will leave that to the diplomats and to the people who were actively taking a role in that. But of course, we are happy that 2 at least have been released. And again, they all should be released immediately. That is absolutely the fastest way for them to come home.
Absolutely. Major Libby, now the next question, of course, is are we headed for an on-ground invasion? Do you believe that is inevitable? Do you believe that could be the only way to get some of the hostages alive if Hamas does not release them in the days ahead, as they've done with the other 2, these 2 Americans who, of course, have now been released from their captivity? Is an on-ground invasion now looking very, very likely?
Well, we are awaiting the decision by the government. Any sort of choice to escalate this to a ground offensive is a decision the government would have to make. So we are certainly waiting for that. But from the IDF perspective, we are increasing our preparedness. So in the last 2 weeks, we have called in over 300,000 reservists back into duty. We are in stages of approving operational plans and increasing training, of course, for those reservist troops. So we will be ready if and when the government makes that decision.
Right. Also, as far as these hostages are concerned, as you were saying earlier, there are about 210, which the IDF believes is still in Hamas's custody. Do we know of which descent they are? Reportedly, they're of multiple nationalities. Is that correct?
That is information that we have heard from, certainly from our allies and from other countries who have nationals amongst those. And again, I think it just underscores, regardless of where the hostages are from, right? These are innocent civilians. These were people who were in their homes and their beds on the street and who were brutally taken. And the call, at least that I have, is that every one of them, regardless of where they are from, should be released immediately.
Absolutely, they should be treated the same way. I absolutely agree with you, but we don't know what's going on in these, in the Hamas terrorist minds, and we must call them and address them as that, Major Libby, because the fact is that they may try and send out messages by releasing just those of foreign origin and not the Israeli ones right now.
And I think a move like that would just underscore how the degree to which Hamas terrorists have no regard for innocent civilians here in Israel. An innocent civilian is an innocent civilian. And whether or not that's somebody with a dual citizenship or whether or not it's an Israeli who did no crime on the morning of October 7th, they absolutely should all be released, and they are all of equal value as humans.
Okay, my final question to you before we let you go, Major Libby, which way is this offensive headed? Which way is this war headed now, this conflict headed? What do you expect in the next few days?
Well, our focus has been and remains on making sure that Hamas will never have the administrative or the military capabilities of ever being able to launch any kind of act of terror against Israelis. That is simply not a reality with which we can live. We absolutely have to make sure that they can never do this for our own survival. And we will do whatever we have to do and whatever the government calls upon us to do to make sure that we can secure a better future for our country and for the people here.
All right, Major Libby Weiss, IDF spokeswoman, thank you very much for joining us on NewsX.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.